My name is Madeline Sharp, and for most of my life, my family called me the disappointment in hushed tones and polite smiles. They didn't shout it, but they didn't have to. Every silence, every empty glance, every missing seat at the table said it louder than words. I was the one who left home at 19, turned down the scholarship to Columbia, and enlisted. To them, that was the moment I threw my life away. My cousin Brendan, on the other hand, followed the script. Straight A's, blazer at family dinners, future officer stamped on his forehead. They built a pedestal for him before he even earned his boots. The night it all changed wasn't meant to be about me. They were celebrating Brendan's early admission into West Point, and the entire backyard was dressed like a 4th of July parade. Red, white, and fake pride. I was seated by the folding chairs near the fire pit. No one asked why I came alone. No one noticed the old callus marks on my hands or the way I watched the exits without thinking. I had learned how to disappear in plain sight. Then the moment hit. Someone shouted for quiet as the TV under the patio awning flashed red. Breaking news. I looked up without expecting much. But there it was. My name. My face. In full uniform, silver stars sharp against my shoulder. CNN confirms, Major General Madeline Sharp, youngest in U.S. history, named lead strategist behind international hostage recovery efforts. You could hear the forks drop. My father's glass shattered in his hand. Brendan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mother blinked like she'd seen a ghost. And me? I didn't stand. I didn't speak. Because when they could have clapped for me, they didn't. Now? They didn't even remember how. I hadn't been back to Ohio in almost a decade. The last time I crossed that county line, my hair was still regulation short, my boots still stiff from jump school, and my heart still held the kind of hope only the young and unproven carry. But hope doesn't survive long in a house where you're always the footnote. The invitation came as a group text. No greeting, just, Brendan's West Point send-off, sat at 5, family dinner, come if you can. No, we'd love to see you. No, how have you been? Just the kind of casual obligation you send to a forgotten cousin, not to the first woman in your bloodline to earn a ranger tab. Still, I went. I didn't wear my uniform. That would have felt like begging. I wore a plain black shirt, dark jeans, and pulled my hair into a simple twist. Civilian enough to blend in, forgettable enough not to challenge anyone's version of the story. The backyard looked exactly the same, except bigger. Somehow the plastic tables seemed longer, the laughter louder, the invisible distance wider. Uncle Jim was grilling like he always did, apron stained, beer half spilled. My mother stood near the folding buffet table, laughing at something Brendan's father said, like she hadn't once told me military life was just running from real responsibility. No one hugged me. A few nods. One cousin muttered, "Well, look who showed up." Someone else asked if I was still driving army trucks or whatever. I smiled without teeth. When I asked where to sit, Aunt Linda pointed toward the kids' table near the fence. "We didn't think you were coming," she said. I sat anyway. Plastic chair, wobbly leg, warm lemonade in a red solo cup. Brendan, of course, had the head of the main table, his old high school ROTC jacket pressed and buttoned. He didn't see me, or pretended not to. Then came the speeches. Uncle Jim took the mic, clearing his throat like he was addressing the Joint Chiefs. "Brendan represents everything we value: discipline, honor, and ambition," he said. "This family has had its detours." His eyes flicked toward me. "But tonight, we celebrate the one who stayed the course." Laughter, applause. My mother clapped. So did my father, even though he once told me I was tearing this family apart with my G.I. Jane nonsense. I didn't say a word. Not when they passed around a homemade photo collage of Brendan in uniform, posing by a tank he'd never driven, saluting in front of a flag he'd never fought to defend. Not even when someone leaned in and said, "Must be weird, huh? Seeing someone else do it right." I kept my hands folded. Quiet, still. Because when you operate under black clearance for long enough, silence becomes more than habit. It becomes armor. But deep down, something in me cracked, just slightly, when I realized my own picture, once framed in my parents' hallway, had been replaced. The last time I saw it was the day I shipped out to Fort Benning. Now it was gone, like I'd never existed. The next morning, I made the mistake of turning on the TV in the motel room. I'd barely stirred my coffee when his voice hit me, smooth, rehearsed, faux humble. I froze mid-sip. There he was, Brendan Sharp, sitting tall on one of those clean, overlit morning show couches, with his signature side part and polished smile, as if he hadn't just stood under a string of fairy lights, pretending to understand sacrifice. The screen banner read, "Rising Military Star, a New Face of Leadership." He began talking about a mission, one I knew by heart. He described an operation near the southern border of Georgia. The country, not the state. A high-risk hostage situation, zero visibility, no intel, no backup. A moment where, against all odds, he made the call to breach early, split the unit, and evacuate civilians under gunfire. Word for word, detail for detail. It was mine. He was reciting my operation, Silent Starfall. He had the terrain right. The number of hostages. The exact unit diversion pattern. Only someone who'd been there would know that. But Brendan had never left the U.S. My heart didn't pound. It chilled, like frost blooming across glass. I called my mother. "Did you see him on Channel 4? I asked. My voice was calm, but my hand was clenched around the motel desk. "Oh, yes," she said slowly. "He's doing so well, finally being seen for the leader he is." I swallowed the bitterness. That mission he described? He wasn't there. He didn't lead it. That was mine. Silence, then softly. "Well, you never really shared what you did. And Brendan, he's just trying to make the family proud." "No," I said. "He's trying to build his name out of the bones of mine." I hung up, not in anger, but in clarity. By noon, my secure line buzzed. Only 4 people in the world had that number. One of them was Lieutenant Colonel Raina Cross, my former mission strategist. Her voice came clipped, but urgent. "There's chatter," she said. "Someone's dredging up your record, especially the part where you refused General Kershaw's drone strike order back in 18. And now Brendan's parading your missions on live television? That's not a coincidence," I said. "No, it's not. And if you don't speak soon, Madeline, they'll write your entire story without you in it." When the call ended, I stared at the blank wall in my motel. Beige. Forgettable. Like they wanted me to be. I opened my old secure laptop, pulled up an encrypted darknet forum we used to monitor when things got too quiet. Typed in my name, just to see. It was worse than I thought. Dozens of threads. Delta rogue during Starfall. She compromised command. She cost lives. Every rumor linked back to one anonymous handle, MJR Delta. Whoever they were, they wanted to bury me with precision, quietly, elegantly. No scandal, no trial, just silence. I didn't flinch. I'd seen enemies in the dark before. But I never expected the knife to come from inside my own bloodline. The first time they tried to erase me, they did it through omission. No medals revoked, no court-martial, just silence. The second time, they used my name like a weapon, hoping it would detonate before I could reclaim it. I met Jonah Sato in an old library that smelled like old paper and dust and paranoia. He owed me nothing, but I'd once pulled him out of a tribunal firestorm when no one else would. Jonah was a digital ghost with fingers like lightning and a brain wired in patterns no textbook could follow. "I need to know who's behind MJR Delta," I said. He didn't even blink. "Already on it." While he worked, I sat in silence. The world outside moved too fast now. News clips, whispers, falsified reports, and inside, it was just one truth I couldn't let rot. Hours later, Jonah looked up. "They cloned your ID." I stared. "They what?" "They've been using your old credentials, biometric, encrypted clearance keys, to access files. Not once, 7 times. Over 18 months, all tied to surveillance, AI drone activity, and off-the-books tracking of high-profile civilians." I swallowed. "From where?" Jonah hesitated. "A military IP out of DC assigned to Brendan's rotation." My chest tightened. It wasn't just identity theft. It was betrayal with institutional fingerprints. But Jonah wasn't done. He pulled up access logs. At the bottom, buried beneath layers of metadata, was a report. The security analyst who signed off on the breach incident just days ago, MJR Delta. I stood, heart thudding. This isn't a smear campaign, I whispered. It's a setup, a full-scale erasure. And now the noose was tightening. The very next morning, a message slipped under my motel door. No postage, no seal, just an envelope. Inside was a faded piece of paper. You don't remember me, but I remember you. Operation Starfall, Sector 12. You came back for us. You could have left, but you didn't. My sister works for CNN. I told her if she ever wanted to report something real, she should find you. Signed, Caleb Morin. I closed my eyes. Caleb, 12 years old when I carried him out under sniper fire, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. He'd clung to me like I was gravity. I never forgot the look in his eyes, terror and faith, twisted into one. 2 hours later, a knock came at the door. Calm. No rush. Just a quiet insistence. She wasn't what I expected. Sarah Morin, Caleb's sister, wasn't slick or hungry for headlines. She looked like someone who had already lost something and had no interest in pretending otherwise. She sat down across from me, pulled out a small recorder, and asked, "If I told your story, not for fame, not for noise, but because the truth deserves breath, would you let it be heard?" I studied her, the calm in her voice, the steadiness in her hands, and then I nodded. Only if you're ready to bleed for it, because the truth had already bled me dry. The CNN piece hadn't aired yet. Sarah was still digging, cross-checking details with Jonah, interviewing silent veterans who only spoke in coded nods. But word travels fast in places it shouldn't. I was driving back from the motel, just passing the long, splintered fence line of our family's property, when I saw it. Smoke. Thick. Dark. Churning like a curse into the sky. I slammed the brakes so hard the gravel beneath me screamed, jumped out, ran. My boots hit the dirt like old instincts snapping awake. The barn was burning. Flames curled out of the rear storage area, hay ignited, black smoke rolling, the scent of chemicals too sharp for accident. On the porch steps, my mother was slumped over. Her hair was soaked with soot. Her hands were blistered. She was still breathing. Barely. I called it in, my voice cold, clipped, surgical. The kind of voice you use in battlefield extractions, not family tragedies. The paramedics came fast. I stood beside them like I didn't belong, like I was back in some war zone that had shapeshifted into home. My father didn't look at me, not even when I stood inches away. "You just had to open your damn mouth," he spat, voice gravel thick. "We didn't need your honor, Madeline. We needed peace." It wasn't rage behind his eyes. It was fear. And suddenly, I understood. This wasn't just personal anymore. Someone wanted us silenced. All of us. That night, Jonah called. Someone accessed your family's local security system, thermal cameras, motion sensors, even your mother's hospital check-in records. I clenched my jaw. How? He hesitated. It was sloppy work, but the source bounced through a relay in Capitol Hill, traced back to Brendan's device. My heart didn't just sink, it calcified. I drove straight to the hospital. My mother was in recovery, pale beneath oxygen tubes. My father sat beside her like a shadow that couldn't admit it was scared of the light. I didn't stop. I found Brendan 2 floors down in the waiting lounge, hunched over a styrofoam cup of bitter coffee. "You gave them access," I said flatly. He looked up. What? "The breach, the location metadata, the system pings. It was your laptop, your login." His face went pale, then blotchy. I didn't think. "You didn't think you'd get caught," I snapped. "But you did, and now Mom almost died in a fire because you sold me out." He stood up, stumbled back a step. "I didn't light any fires." "No?" I said coldly. "But you gave them the map." He didn't deny it, didn't say a word. That was confirmation enough. Hours later, Jonah called again. "I traced the final piece," he said. "Brendan made a deal. Encrypted channel, confirmed digital signature. He traded family location data for a seat on the Pentagon's media rotation. A pause. They used you. And he let them. I sat outside the hospital, staring at the smoke still stitched into my coat sleeves, realizing they didn't just want my silence. They wanted me erased, not from records, from memory, and they'd come for my family to do it. I didn't go back to the Pentagon. I didn't ask for reinstatement. I packed a single bag, left a note with Sarah, and flew to Zurich under a diplomatic cover no one would question, except the ones who built it. Jonah had found the source, a buried military installation in the Swiss Alps. Long abandoned, supposedly, but the data pulses coming from it said otherwise. Active AI systems, encrypted command layers, thermal irregularities that whispered one thing. Someone was building a ghost army. And inside the code, my name. My old AI design, Atlas Strike 3.1, a project I shelved years ago for being too dangerous, too untested, too human. They'd resurrected it, warped it. Jonah tried to breach it remotely. The line went dead. I followed the coordinates myself. Underground, past steam pipes and metal doors. I found her. Ilara Vane, once my protégée, now dressed in black tactical fiber, eyes cold with ambition. You taught me how to lead in silence, she said. But I got tired of being in the dark. The countdown had already started. Atlas was online, targeting 7 cities. Autonomous. No human override once launched. I didn't argue. I moved. She lunged. A blade caught under my rib. Pain exploded. But I grabbed the nearest live cable and slammed it into the conduit behind her. Sparks flew. The room went black. The system stuttered. Countdown failed. Backup flooded in seconds later. Ilara tried to run. She didn't make it past the threshold. I found my father chained inside a storage cell, pale, barely conscious. His eyes fluttered open, met mine. "You're not like your mother," he whispered. "You're stronger than all of us, and—" I was wrong. His hand tightened around mine for one heartbeat, then went still. Outside, the snow fell heavy and silent. I didn't cry. I walked out into the storm, bloodied coat and burnt code behind me. Because this war, it was never about weapons. It was about who got to write the story. The fallout wasn't quiet. Within hours of our exit, encrypted data flooded every major agency: CNN, the Department of Defense, the Congressional Oversight Committee. The headlines rolled out like thunder. Unauthorized AI program exposed. Covert weapon system dismantled. Insider identified. They said Ilara Vane had engineered it all. Her name was everywhere. Mine? Buried, exactly where I needed it to be. For once, it wasn't about being seen. It was about finally being heard. When I testified before Congress, I didn't come to reclaim what had been taken. No full uniform, no stars, no polished boots, just a pressed white shirt, clean slacks, and a voice sharpened by every year I spent in silence. "I'm not here to wear a medal," I said. "I'm here because when we allow silence to be weaponized, truth doesn't just disappear, it's rewritten." The room went still. Not one senator interrupted. And then the name they didn't want to say came out: Brendan Sharp. The data trail was irrefutable. Brendan's device, Brendan's credentials, Brendan's digital signature, used to trade family metadata for a seat at the Pentagon's media office. He was never charged with a crime, but he lost everything: his rank, his clearance, his right to ever wear the uniform again. He found me afterward, waiting outside the hearing room. He didn't look like the boy they celebrated in that backyard anymore. His coat was wrinkled, his eyes tired, hollow. "I didn't think it would go that far," he said. "I just wanted someone to believe I was worth something." "You were," I said calmly, "until you stole that belief from someone else." He looked down. "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No, I don't waste hate. But forgiveness? That's earned. And you haven't started." I left him standing beneath a flag he no longer had the right to salute. A week later, the president called. Not a secretary, not a staffer. The president himself. He thanked me. Told me my refusal to compromise had prevented the largest AI escalation in American history. Then came the offer. Strategic command, full reinstatement, National address. The youngest general ever. I paused, then declined. Because real power isn't about rising back to the top. It's about choosing where, and how, you stand. Instead, I went home. Not to the house where my photo had once hung, but to open the Sharp Institute for Strategic Ethics, a quiet academy on the edge of the Texas plains. No statues, no flags, just classrooms where we taught leadership, restraint, and the kind of courage that doesn't make headlines. On opening day, I stepped into the lecture hall, and there, in the third row, sat my mother. No shame, no sorrow, just pride. I took a breath. I used to think I needed applause to prove I belonged, I told the class. But now I know. Living with truth is the only victory that matters. I picked up the chalk and wrote on the board. No applause needed, just live true.